I've been a weekend fisherman for many years, starting when I was a small boy. My grandfather used to take me on trips quite often, and he taught me just about all I know about fishing. He's since passed away, so we don't get to share those experiences anymore, but those memories are some I will always cherish. The feeling of a strong bite always gets my heart pumping, I tell you. It isn't easy for me to get away anymore and wet a line, so when the opportunity arose, I would usually take it without much hesitation. Sometimes I'd take a friend along, but mostly it's just me alone with the fish and the frogs. Going on so many overnight trips, I thought I knew the wilderness pretty well, but now I'm not so sure. The stars aligned one weekend, and I got the chance to go overnight to a spot I've been to many times. I've had a lot of success at this particularly beautiful but secluded location, and I wasn't expecting much out of the ordinary, so nothing truly prepared me mentally for that night. Now, Otter Lake is a fairly large body of water, and it borders a deep, old growth forest. I arrived a little after noon, and the bite was good that day. No one else was around, and it was just about perfect. One of those rare days where you really didn't have anything to complain about. Not that anyone was there to listen, anyways. I set up camp just before dusk settled, and the sky was painted with all sorts of oranges and reds. It was truly spectacular. Now, my setup is pretty modest, but it keeps the wind out and the warmth in, and that's all I ever really need. I was halfway through my first catch of the evening, grilling it over an open fire when I heard it. The first whistle. It was shrill, it had a melody to it, and it filtered loudly through the woods in a haunting sort of way. That's a new one, I thought to myself, but it sure didn't sound like any bird or animal I'd ever heard. I settled into my sleeping bag after cleaning up a good meal of fresh fish, and just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard that whistle again. This time, it was closer, and it was accompanied by what sounded like heavy, measured footsteps coming from the tree line. The noise eventually stopped, and my heart started racing. Is someone else out there? I asked myself. I had seen others around this lake before, but not that particular day. The forest was absolutely dead quiet. It was dark as ink out there because my small cooking fire had gone out by then. I remember fumbling for my flashlight while being as quiet as possible. I figured my heart would pound out of my chest, it was beating so fast. I felt exposed, like the walls of the tent were closing in, and I kept telling myself it was probably just my imagination running wild. That's what I thought until something touched the fabric of that tent. Now, I know it wasn't any branches or anything like that. I'd made my camp in a clearing by the water, and there was nothing there to touch the tent. I was paralyzed with fear. I remember the sound it made on the material as whatever it was slowly moved against the top of it. The thing, whatever it was, moved around the tent slowly, and then it pressed harder against the top of the tent. The fabric pushed inward as if a hand was on it. I could hear the thing breathing as a second whistle sounded out further back in the woods. There were apparently more than one. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I pointed my flashlight in the direction of the thing, and I yelled out as I turned it on. I saw what looked like the indentation of a huge hand, and for a second, there was nothing. And then this thing let out a scream that to this day still gives me chills. I'll tell you that noise was not from any animal I know of, and I don't believe a human can make that sound. Not in a million years. It left the camp in a hurry and went crashing through the woods. I don't know how big this thing was, but it must have been massive, as I could feel every single step it took. I didn't dare sleep that night. Thankfully, nothing else happened. I guess I had scared them off somehow. As soon as the sun came up, I packed up my camp and I got the hell out of there. I stopped at the first sign of civilization I found, which was an old gas station off the highway. The feeling of relief that came over me was something else. I don't know how to describe it, but I was sure glad I wasn't near those woods anymore. My fishing trips are daytime affairs only now, and I've never been back to that place. Sometimes I think about it and almost work up the courage to go, but I doubt I ever will, honestly. I don't know what visited my camp that night, and I certainly didn't spend any more time there than necessary. I didn't need to look for any more evidence. The memory's enough, and it isn't one I'll ever cherish. I hope I never encounter whatever that thing was again, or hear their awful whistles.